Hi and welcome. My name is Ariana and I work with Integrative Family Medicine at Asheville. This is our community class series. Today, Kaoverii Weber has joined us to teach a class on building greater resilience with slow, mindful yoga practice. We are here for you during the COVID-19 pandemic. During this unprecedented time, we have made our clinic easily accessible through virtual visits. Our focus is on helping patients optimize their health now and being readily available if they get sick. We believe that healthcare can be done differently, and we are committed to giving back to our community. Our health-related classes like this one are free to members and open to the community at large. Our team of holistic, integrative practitioners is dedicated to helping you lead a healthy, happy, integrated life. Feel free to contact our front desk if you have any questions, or go to our website at www.integrativeasheville.org. So Kristine Weber has been studying yoga and holistic healing for 30 years. She has been teaching since 1995 and training yoga teachers since 2003. She is the director of the Subtle Yoga Teacher Training for Behavioral Health Professionals program at Mayhec in Asheville, North Carolina. She presents workshops and trainings internationally. She has offered a community class with our practice previously that was fantastic as well. And we are honored to have her here again and just truly appreciate the wisdom and the value of what she teaches. Thank you so much for taking the time to offer this presentation with us today.
Sure. Thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be here, and I just have such great respect and for the practice and for integrative family medicine practice, and really happy to share some of this information with your patients at the practice. So I'll just get started here. The presentation is about building greater resilience with slow, mindful yoga practice. So you might think a little bit about like, what does that mean to be resilient? It means I can easily bounce back from stressors. It means that I feel like when difficult challenges come up, that I can face it head on and deal with it. And I think something that's important to realize is that right now we're in the middle of, of course, we all know we're in the middle of a global pandemic, but we're also in the middle of something that presents a traumatic challenge for many of us. You could say it's a mass traumatic event. People respond to traumas differently. Some people just bounce right through them. Other people, it affects them very profoundly. So this event that we're in the middle of is going to be asking a lot of us. It is asking a lot of us in both a mental health kind of way, but also physiologically, because of the intersection of those things. You can't really tease out what's going on in your body from what's going on in your mind. They are intimately connected. And so since we're in the middle of this challenge, we have to, I think it's very important for us to think about, what do we need to become more resilient, to shore up our resilience. Now, of course, it would have been great if prior to March you were spending the past 20 years of your life shoring up your resilience. But a lot of folks, we weren't thinking about the fact that at some point we could be encountering a global crisis like the one that we're encountering now. And so that I think we're called right now. I think we're called right now to show up in a more resilient way. And you can just sort of think about the way some folks might say, oh, just buck up and deal with it. Um, I would suggest that that's often not the best strategy, that there are other ways that we can build greater resilience in the nervous system. And part of this has to do with using practices, active practices that help us to develop develop a resilience towards the stress response. Of course, that's part of it. Develop greater psychological flexibility and psychological resilience. And also develop our support systems, because it's the support systems that are so important for human beings in becoming more resilient. So getting to know your neighbors more and, really leveraging and cultivating those relationships you already have with friends and family is partly how we get through these things together. So in this presentation, I'd like to take you through a few, we're going to talk a little bit about neurobiology, but we're not going down a deep rabbit hole there. But I want to kind of explore with you the unique benefits of slow mindful movement, which are different than the cardiovascular benefits, although of course there's some crossover, different from the cardiovascular benefits of exercise. Now, we know, and we have known basically since 1969 when Dr. Kenneth Cooper came out with his great work, Aerobics. We've had a strong cultural awareness about the importance of cardiovascular exercise. It's very, there's ample evidence, robust body of research that lets us understand the benefits of exercising for the heart, for the mind, excellent for depression. There's some stories that show that it's as good or even better for mild depression than antidepressants. So there's a robust body of research. But what we don't have, what has only begun to emerge in the research literature in the past 10 years or so, 15 years, are the unique benefits of slow mindful movement. And so I'm going to break that down a little bit for you here. What I would I want to tell you one other thing. Even though we all know how great exercise is for us, only 1 out of 5 people in the United States actually do any consistent, regular exercise, which may seem a little odd, particularly if you live in Nashville where people are like, into their health and stuff. But in the whole country, 1 out of 5. It's a massive public health problem, actually, that we know what is so good for preventing disease, for mitigating some of the symptoms of chronic disease. And yet chronic disease is a growing, exploding problem in the United States. Yes, it's a public health crisis for sure. And then on top of the public health crisis of chronic disease, now we have a public health crisis of an acute disease of COVID. So we are called, I would suggest, to find ways to be strong in the face of what we're dealing with. I'm not suggesting, and I would never suggest, that doing yoga will prevent you from getting COVID. So I want to be clear that that's not my message. But I do think it will give you more inner strength to deal with whatever you have to deal with, whether it's a parent getting the diagnosis or somebody in the hospital or somebody passing away, or you yourself being exposed to the virus, to give you the best, advantage that you have. And I think that this is so important. This is the sort of the crux of what's called lifestyle medicine. And lifestyle medicine is not a Western invention. In fact, it comes from the traditions, the indigenous medical systems, including Ayurveda. And yoga and Ayurveda are sister sciences. Now, Ayurveda is the indigenous or the traditional medicine of India. And in Ayurveda, there's a word dinacharya, which I'll type in the chat box just so if I can find the chat box here while I'm presenting. There's a word, yeah, here it is. Maybe I'm not seeing it. I'm not sure why. Anyway, I would type it for you. Oh, here it is. Just so you can see what that word is, dinacharya. Dinacharya means lifestyle interventions or lifestyle medicine. It means, cultivating healthy habits, waking up in the morning and meditating a bit, doing some yoga postures, taking a relaxing walk, eating healthy food, making sure that you're doing some really taking proactive measures, taking proactive steps to mitigate the stress response, right? And to minimize your exposure to stressors, be they toxins or stressful situations or stressful relationships. This kind of medicine has been around for thousands of years. Western medicine kind of is claiming it in some ways and revamping it in sort of a different light, but it's been around for a long time. And yoga practice, I believe, is one of the most powerful preventative strategies, not just asanas, but meditation, breathing practices, and ethical operationalizing ethics and values, and then also these lifestyle practices, a very powerful, very potent recipe for helping folks to build resilience and shoring up those inner resources as we, deal with this pandemic. So what I'd like to show you, anyway, this is just a little intro about me. As Ariana said, I'm the director of the subtle yoga training for behavioral health professionals at MAHEC, which is here in Asheville. I've been doing that work for about 12 years now. I've been working with mental health professionals. I've trained hundreds of mental health professionals in using these practices with their clients, which is one way that the practices can be conceptualized and utilized, but also folks can, when you feel like you have a habit of practice and you can do it on your own every day, you've really taken a massive step, a huge step towards preventing chronic health challenges, as well as towards building resilience and making yourself strong in the face of this pandemic. I wanted to show you this slide, and this is also on the slides that we're offering as part of this training. Because I have a free class that you're welcome to take. It's on YouTube, and when you sign up for it, it also will we'll also send you a free script with it and a stick figure handout. So stick figure handouts kind of look like this. They have stick figures on them to kind of tell you what to do with the postures. So feel free to access that. I'd love you to join us. Okay, so let's get into talking a little bit about what yoga is about. And if we go to the traditional text, which is called the Yoga Sutras, which was written something around 2,000 years ago, give or take several hundred years, the aphorism, or the sutra as it's called, that defines yoga is this first one, which is pronounced Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. And the definition is yoga is a cessation of the fluctuations of the mind. I know that this can seem like, I don't know, a little confusing. Like, how do I stop my mind from flinging itself around? Well, that's the whole purpose. And that's why this text, this Yoga Sutras was written. The whole purpose of the text is to explain how to do that. But right in the beginning of the text, Patanjali lays out, this is the meaning of yoga. But you really can't understand that sutra without looking at the next sutra, which is Tada Drastu Swarupeya Vastanam, which means something like, because when you stop your mind doing all of its stuff, then you really can start to understand who you are. So this is a call to get quiet sometimes, quiet things down. When you know who you are, you know what to do, which is a key point of yoga. So basically, the first part, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, stop the mind, means we're trying to create some sort of state of stability or homeostasis in the system. Homeostasis in the mind, stability of the mind, homeostasis of the body, physiological homeostasis, which actually is never homeostasis. It's really homeodynamic balance. Trying to create some kind of a balance in the system. And it's through that balance that it leads towards a sense of identity, of self-understanding and identity. So this is really the purpose of yoga. Get balanced, to get stable, so that you can understand who you are. And as you understand who you are, as you understand identity, then feelings of meaning and purpose and understanding of values begin to arise, and you can understand how to take right action in the world that makes sense for you uniquely. So I want to talk a little bit about how things are changing in the yoga world. So this word asana, it's not asana, by the way, it's asana. This word asana means yoga postures. And when I first started practicing yoga postures, it was actually in the late 80s. Well, my first yoga classes were in the 70s, but I started practicing regularly in the late 80s. And at that time, it was very much just this sort of like, you went to yoga class and you kind of rolled around on the floor a lot. That all changed in the early to mid 90s, when there was the fitness industry got into yoga and decided that this fast, fluid, flowy movement was really the way to go, because we're taking yoga and then we're fitting it into our paradigm, which says harder, faster, exercise is good, and we know that because of Dr. Kenneth Cooper's work, so let's do that with yoga. When maybe if we kept yoga on its own terms, we would start to understand some different benefits that are there. So the dominant paradigm, I'm going to juxtapose with an emerging paradigm, because the thing that's really exciting to me to see, and I'd like to think that I've been instrumental in helping this to come to fruition, along with lots of other wonderful people that are, working in the yoga world. But there's an emerging paradigm. Something is shifting. And we're shifting from this understanding of asanas as where you have to fit your body into the shape of the pose for it to be real or good. And that's changing into, let's use asanas as a way to serve the body, as a way for the body to express itself, if you like, and start to feel into what's going on in the body. I love that this is shifting. There's no longer sort of a right way to do a yoga pose anymore. Now we're looking at it more biomechanically and functionally, instead of there's this form that you have to look at, which is really, that comes from like dancing, and acrobatics. And we're also shifting from this idea that the body and the mind are these distinct things, and we're going to use the mind to subdue the body. Now, I would suggest that some of that is from America, and also some of that is from, to some extent, is from a colonized Indian perspective of this idea of subduing the body. So, it's deep in the minds of many people who've taught yoga over the years. And what we're shifting towards is this idea that the body and the mind are interwoven allies. And we can use the body and mind in a holistic alliance, as opposed to having this master-slave narrative about the body. So that dominate the body was very dominant, very big part of the yoga conversation 20 years ago. But what's emerging is this listening to your body. So instead of controlling the body, befriending the body. Right. And thinking about it as an alliance, and moving away from Nike, just do it, towards this idea of allow and notice. And I think that as we shift from this dominant paradigm to this emerging paradigm, we're going to see a lot more interest in slow mindful yoga as an antidote for so many of the, this sort of barrage of stressors that we have in our culture. So one of the other models I like to use is exercise versus exercise. So I talk about exercise, and by the way, there's always crossover with these things, right? But it's just a model to just sort of understand it intellectually, that we've been in this fitness yoga world for 25 years or so now. And I would suggest we're moving towards this exercise model, which is really kind of the way that yoga was understood traditionally. So the exercise yoga was about strength, flexibility, and stamina. All noble goals, no doubt, but different than the goals of exercise yoga, which I would suggest have to do with activating what's called the tendon befriend response. That's part of the ventral part of the vagal complex, if you want to get into the technicalities of it. It has to do with when I social engage with others, make eye contact, smile, and then I start to feel a letdown in the sympathetic part of the nervous system that controls the heart and the lungs. And what Stephen Porges has said, he's the guy who developed this theory about the vagus nerve, polyvagal theory, is that you can also get to tendon befriend by yourself, through doing yoga practices specifically, or meditation practices. So we're looking for that tendon befriend response to ourselves. We're looking for more physiologic balance, homeodynamic balance, and then also the promotion of mental health. Now, by the way, you can promote mental health with exercise, for sure, it's there, but it's not as much of a specific goal. The goal of exercise tends to be cardiovascular fitness, where I would suggest the goal of exercise is nervous system resilience, in order to lead you to a deeper understanding of yourself. So slow mindful yoga, I'm going to break down 3 benefits of it. And the first is this idea of interception, which has become rather well known in the past few years. I'm excited to see it out there more. And the research on interoception is relatively recent. Like, we're talking 2014. I've seen studies back as far as 2008, but it's new. It's kind of a new understanding that there's this idea of interoception. So what does interoception mean? It means noticing the feelings in your body. Most interoception happens below the level of consciousness, and it's things like thermoregulation, helping your body. Like I'm sitting here and I'm talking, and I don't have the window open. I'm starting to sweat a little bit, and I got a light on my face. That's my body trying to thermoregulate. And it's below. Thank goodness I don't have to do that. I don't have to think about it and be like, I better turn my thermostat down. The same thing with breathing. You don't have to think about breathing. It's being handled autonomically. So our body is constantly trying to create balance. That's the whole point of interoception. But some interoception is conscious, and that tends to be interfacing with brain structures towards the front of the brain. There's a cortical island called the insular cortex, which is underneath your cortex here, and it interfaces with the prefrontal cortex, and it says, "Hey, I'm not feeling so safe being in the room with this person who is like kind of being mean or aggressive in some way." So my body's saying, "Hey, can we leave the situation?" It also is saying, "Hey, I don't feel so great in that yoga posture. Like it hurts something in my back, and I'm not going to ignore it anymore. I'm going to pay attention to it and adjust the posture in a way that's more comfortable for my body." All of that is part of interoception. And the point of interoception is homeostasis. Again, get me back to balance. If you don't pay attention to when you have to go to the bathroom, you can get cystitis. It's like, I have to pay attention to my body. If you don't pay attention to when you're hungry, or you're hearing those signals in a way that's dysfunctional, you either don't eat or you eat Krispy Kremes. So how do I tune into the needs of my body? This is not a skill, by the way, that is taught in schools. We teach proprioception all the time. That's where my body's in space, and it's very important for sports. But we don't teach a lot of interoception, although it is important for really elite athletes to understand to have a sense of interoception, because it's part of performance. They're not, again, these aren't like entirely distinct functions, although they do run on different mechanoreceptors in the body. So they are different, but there is a lot of crossover. So the term that I like to use with slow yoga is I want to help people improve interoceptive awareness, which is like bringing things that are unconscious into my conscious awareness. Like I'm usually not paying attention to those, or I ignore those hunger signals, and then I end up, exhausted in the middle of the day because I forgot to eat lunch. Does that ever happen to you? Right. Those sorts of things. Like, so now I'm going to pay attention to it. And by the way, the computer is a way that we really get out of ourselves. So it's super important to spend time off of the computer and spend time in yourself. And spending time in yourself is not the same thing as Netflix and wine. That is kind of a numbing out strategy that many people use, understandably, because it's such a high stress time, high stress culture. But interoception requires active participation. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in terms of the yoga practice. Now, the second big point is that as we improve interoception, we help to reduce inflammation. I'll talk about inflammation a little bit more too. Let me just go through the 3 points and then we'll kind of go over them. And the last one is talking about reducing symptoms of chronic conditions, which there are many. 6 out of 10 Americans have at least one chronic condition. 4 out of 10 Americans have 2 or more. Chronic conditions take up 90% of our $3.6 trillion healthcare bill. So low risk, low cost, viable, and person-centered interventions like slow mindful yoga are going to be super important for helping folks to manage, a very important piece of helping folks to manage the chronic conditions personally, and then also the population health problems of chronic conditions. Okay, so let me break down interoception just a little bit. I'm not going to go too much in. I don't want to go down the deep rabbit hole of the neuroscience, but a little bit. Interoception is the way that your body communicates with your brain, and its primary function is homeostasis. This is from an English researcher named Eric Sunan, who says unconscious body states influence your emotions, your behavior, and your decision making. Isn't that fascinating? The way my body feels is going to influence my decision making, and sometimes without my even knowing it. So when I develop interoceptive awareness, then I start being like, this is how my body's feeling at this moment. And maybe I shouldn't make that choice of opening up the Coke or Coca-Cola or the Coke. Or maybe I shouldn't make the choice of eating the overly sweet, fatty foods. And rather, I need to sort of be with myself and see what my body needs and eat something nourishing, and then take care of my stress so that I don't habitually reach for the unhealthy foods in a way to mitigate the stress response unconsciously, right? That sort of thing is going on all the time for us. And so making one of my favorite quotes from Dr. Carl Jung is, enlightenment is not about imagining figures of light. It's about making the unconscious conscious. So when I take stuff that's usually happening unconscious in my body and I bring it into awareness, I can make better decisions. And this is super important for reinforcing a sense of identity and helping to mitigate the symptoms of chronic illness, and helping to mitigate those feelings of discomfort, right? And the mental health challenge as well. So poor interoception, according to the researchers, is associated, and this means like I'm not feeling my body, right? I'm just like spending all my time on the screen or in front of Netflix, or I just like don't have any life from the neck down. Lots of people walk around like that, right? And we know it's associated with chronic pain, with medically unexplained symptoms, with negative emotions, anxiety, poor emotional regulation, poor decision making. Isn't this making all so much sense now? And of course, eating disorders are associated with it too, because I'm not really tuning into how I feel. So I'm eating things that are not necessarily what I need. Addictive tendencies, big one, because people with addictive tendencies or addiction disorders tend to look outside of themselves for answers all the time. Where I'm asking, when we ask with interoception, with developing interoception, to turn that lens around and look inside. It's also associated with high blood pressure and cancer-related fatigue. Poor interoception essentially equals a lack of homeostasis, mental, emotional, as well as physiologic. And so we want to develop that interoceptive tendency. And this is from Norman Farb, who's at the University of Toronto. And one of his quotes about interoception, he says, maladaptive construal of bodily sensations may lie at the heart of many contemporary maladies. Basically, what he's saying in his scientific speech is that, when we don't know how we feel, we tend to accumulate more chronic illnesses. They're very much related. So we also know that good interoception creates greater balance and greater resilience when we have accurate interoception. But the research shows that it's associated with increased vagal tone. Vagal tone means the functioning of the vagus nerve, which is the largest nerve of the parasympathetic nervous system, right? So that's the part of yourself that helps you to calm down when you're feeling stressed out. When the vagus nerve works well, you can come back to homeostasis easily. When it's not working well, you stay in that hyper-aroused state, that stress state. Improves what's called heart rate variability. This is how they measure vagal tone. And it's a little complicated, but basically what it means is your heart is able to adapt, and you have your heart's not beating like a metronome, but it has a little bit of space between the beats, and that means it can adapt to whatever situation it's in, emotional as well as physical. It also increases presence, my ability to be here and now with folks. It increases agency, which is my feelings of I have some control over my life. Self-regulation, being able to regulate the emotional states, and then co-regulation, being able to be with other people and regulate our emotional states, and resilience. And this is from Eric Sunan again too. So this is the benefit of learning these interoception awareness skills. And so don't you think this is something that everybody should learn more of? Like, I feel like it's a public health issue. If we had more people who could teach interoceptive awareness, more people who came to do slow mindful yoga, then we're getting something. We're developing a skill that just about everybody needs. And as I said, we don't learn it in school. It's not something we're taught in school. I have two more things I want to talk about, and then we'll do practice. So inflammation is another really big one here. Now, they used to say that eating fat caused heart disease, and that has started to shift. And folks are understanding that actually it's inflammation that acts like a magnet and kind of sucks the fat to the into the blood vessels to create heart disease. So different, right? And what we're starting to understand is that inflammation is not just about the body. It also has a lot to do with the stress response, and inflammation is connected to depression. It may reduce memory and increase anxiety. It inhibits the development of new neurons in the brain, or neurogenesis, which doesn't happen everywhere in the brain, but there's certain parts of the brain that can, especially the hippocampus, that can grow new neurons. And inflammation is a link between chronic conditions like obesity and mood disorders, particularly depression. Inflammation can also occur from a heavy toxic load, of course, too. And it's linked to autoimmune disorders. So inflammation is a big problem. How does slow mindful yoga help? We'll talk about it. With inflammation, you have this suppression of the immune system leads to inflammation, which leads to greater suppression of the immune system, right? And the immune system suppressed, more likely, colds and all sorts of other things. We want to increase we want the immune system to be functioning well. We don't want it to be hyped up or hypo functioning. With excessive inflammation, it leads to things like heart disease, atherosclerosis, digestion disorders, bone disorders, glucose disorders, diabetes, and negative impact on the brain as well. And there is a robust body of research suggesting that yoga practice, including meditation, helps to lower stress and inflammation and regulate cortisol in the system. So again, I would never say just do yoga. I think that we have to talk to physicians about inflammation processes and autoimmune processes and chronic disease processes, of course, and achieve, and look for the valuable treatments. But one important treatment is, or one important, I should say, aspect of treatment, one important piece is certainly that self-care piece. And that self-care piece, when you're doing regular practice, not just Netflix and wine, but you're taking some steps to work on breathing, work on slow mindful movement, you start to develop a skill set, and it does make changes. There is some research showing how it makes changes in the brain, and how we start to move in a way that's more, move towards this possibility of greater resilience in the system. So going slow is going to be really important here. And this is from Dr. Norman Doidge, who wrote the book called The Brain's Way of Healing. Why is slow different than fast yoga? Fast yoga, I put in that fitness exercise category. It's great. Do fast yoga unless you've got joint problems or, chronic pain, then you want to be really careful with that. But slow mindful yoga has different benefits. And one of the benefits, this is from Norman Doidge. So he says, slowness of movement is the key to awareness. Awareness is the key to learning. So awareness here is interoceptive awareness again. And when we move slow, we are opening ourselves up to the possibility of greater interoceptive awareness. How does my body feel in this moment? Instead of ignoring it, we're often taught to ignore the feelings in our body in sports and fitness, right? So the whole point of this is not so much about the fitness, but developing that inner awareness. As we develop that inner awareness, it leads to more subtle observation, which leads to what's called map differentiation. You have maps all over your brain of your body in different places, but the most important ones are probably the somatosensory cortex in the cortex here in the temporal and the parietal lobes, right? Or cortices, they don't call them lobes anymore. Anyway, the point is you have maps of your body up in your brain, and the more that those maps are differentiated, meaning I can tell the difference between each of my fingers when I move them and when I sense them. Sensing the feelings in them is different than moving them, right? I start to get a little bit more sense of oh, that's a different place in my body. Fingers are kind of easy because they're highly innervated. There's lots of nerves there. What's harder is can you tell the right side of your abdomen from your left side of your abdomen? Can you feel into the vertebra in your lumbar spine? Can you differentiate the fourth lumbar vertebra from the third lumbar vertebra, right? That starts to be a little bit more difficult. And yoga practice, slow mindful practice, is one way we start to really increase this map differentiation, which is so important. Okay, so and then the other thing I'm going to show you my key takeaways in a moment, but I want to go back just for a sec, because the other thing I didn't really get to was the chronic diseases and the symptoms of chronic diseases. And that's kind of in this slide here, this idea that, yeah, diabetes, heart disease, and it doesn't have, this slide doesn't have anything about the chronic obstructive pulmonary disorders, but those are, having to do with lung issues, lung diseases, and then certainly the cognitive issues and the mental health stuff. All of that is here on this slide. So interoceptive awareness helps us to reduce inflammation, which helps us to reduce symptoms of chronic disease and build greater resilience. That's the main takeaway I wanted to make sure we got to before I finish up here. Okay, so building interoceptive skills may reduce the inflammatory processes, reduce the symptoms of chronic illness, help to rewire the brain, and not just the brain, but the nervous system, anxiety, depression, and chronic pain, and develop a greater sense of self and greater potential for self-understanding, so that we make congruent actions and decision-making based on who we are, and that understanding of who we are is very important. And then these last 2 points helps to increase the stability of our self-concept, this homeostasis again, and provide a foundation for self-actualization and self-understanding. Like those are more of the loftier spiritual goals of yoga. And of course, leading to a deeper relationship with yourself, which also continue into that higher power as well. And there's a robust body of research from Harold Koenig, Corey Keyes, Barbara Fredrickson, and others about the benefits of spirituality for health. Okay, so I'm going to pause there and see if there are any questions right now before I go on to do some practice. Those are some references that you'll get with the PowerPoint, or if you're just watching this later, you're welcome to stop the video so you can see the references. Yeah, that's all. And then that's the link for my class. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing now and see if there's any questions from anyone. Like we're good. There's something in the chat. No questions. Okay, this is great. All right, thank you. Okay, so let's practice. Am I spotlighted here? Spotlight for everyone. There we go. Okay, so I've got a few things that I want to take you through. We only have like about 15 minutes or so. So I just want to show you a couple of things you could do on your own, that you could do on your own for, like, say you're working at your desk a lot. I'm sitting here at my desk. I sit here all the time. And sometimes I'll just start doing a little bit of chair yoga, like as a break in the middle of the day. And then I start to think like, maybe if I stood up, I could do a little more. So like, it's always good. That's one of my pieces of advice, which is trick yourself into doing some movement several times a day, even if it's just a little bit, trick yourself into it, because you will benefit from it for sure. So feel free to back away from your computer screen. I hope you can hear me okay from back here. My mic's a little bit far away, but and you can sit in a chair, and you are also welcome to stand up for this too. And we'll start. Okay, good. I'm glad you can hear me. We'll start with placing the hands on the lap here and your feet flat on the floor. Yeah. So just taking a moment, you're welcome to soften or close your eyes and take a moment and tune in. So when you soften or close your eyes, it turns down your visual cortex, which some people say takes as much as 70% of our attention. So you shut that stuff down and then let that energy go inside, so you can kind of notice what's going on. What do my feet feel like? What do my hands feel like? If you like, you can take a nice, long, slow breath. Taking a moment to tune in. Now, you may, as you're sitting here, you may feel yourself wanting to adjust, maybe make your spine a little longer. Maybe soften your shoulders a bit, or soften the muscles between your eyebrows, perhaps. Sometimes that much of a break, like 3 breaths, is enough to get you going, Okay, so here's we'll do a chair asana or chair posture, and the invitation is bring your hands to your chest. Notice which hand is on top and which hand is underneath. And then again, you're welcome to soften or close your eyes, take a breath, feel your hands on your chest. And maybe there is a positive quality you'd like to bring in here. Like, I need a little more peace or contentment, or I need a little bit more energy. It could be any of those things. And just take a moment and imagine those are in your hands and they're moving from your hands into your body. Using your hands with postures is very helpful for increasing that interoceptive awareness, because it gives you a place to focus. Okay, and then when you're ready, on your next inhale, we'll allow the arms to come out to the side. You can lift your eyes. And when you exhale, cross your other hand in front and lower your chin. This is good for your brain because you have to kind of think about what you're doing. Do it again. Inhale, open. Exhale, close. If you don't like the feeling of your breath, then just move slowly. That's fine. If you want to use your breath to massage from the inside out, that makes it an interoceptive tool. Feel like the breath is filling you up. So that's also something that you may want to try. And as you switch your hands back and forth, you're doing what's called cross-lateral movement, going across the midline with your hands. And it's a little integration too, because you're also touching the midline. And that going across the midline is really good for your brain. We'll do that again in a moment. We'll do another one in a moment, rather. Now, next time when you take your hands out to the side, let's stay there for a moment, lifting the eyes for a few breaths. So this can be a really nice stretch for folks who spend a lot of time at the computers and just did it really slow and mindful. And it's not slow and mindful means not as important. It means slow and mindful has different benefits, right? So you may choose to take the hands back a little further, like hitchhike back a bit. That might feel good. You may choose to look up a bit. You may want to lift your arms a little bit higher. And as you're ready, then just let your hands float back to your heart again and lower the chin. And so again, we'll go into just a moment of pause. And I asked you to bring some positive quality in. So you may take a moment in here and imagine that your hands are bringing that positive quality into your body, filling your body with, let's say, contentment. And then how that starts to trickle up into your mind, to move up into your mind. And then when you're ready, just let your hands float down to your lap. So we'll go back to take a moment here to pause. So one of my favorite expressions that I teach my students a lot is the pause is as important as the pose, because it's in the pause part where you start to notice that you have the capacity to make neuroplastic changes. You start to undo the wiring or rewire the stress response, undo the wiring of depression and anxiety. So softening those shoulders a little bit, softening or closing your eyes, and just taking a moment and feel the reverberation of that movement we did. So subtle, so simple. And we also added that piece of sort of what you would call a top-down or a cognitive piece. Right, bringing an affirmation in. Okay, so let's do another one. So that's something simple you could do in your chair. And let's say you wanted to be standing for that. You could definitely do standing up, right? It's like stand behind your chair and do the same thing. So standing is definitely a possibility for that. Okay, and you could also do standing on this one too. So this one is going to be more of a twist. We're going to take the right hand out to the side. And your left hand could hold the chair, the arm of the chair, or just the seat of the chair, whatever's comfortable. And for this one, you have to make sure you're up in the front of your chair. If you're sitting back in the chair, it won't work because you need space to twist your upper body. Okay, so take a breath in, get tall. And as you exhale, put your right hand on your left chest and look over your left shoulder. And pause for a moment, draw your belly in. And then inhale back to neutral. Again, you might want to take contentment or whatever it is, put it in to your left lung, put it into the left side of your body, and then inhale back. So, yeah, as if all the cells in your body are reverberating with that idea of kindness or contentment, whatever you've chosen. Let's do 2 more. And be mindful here that you're not using this left hand as a crowbar. It's just a support there. You're just gently twisting into the pose. Last time. This is the inhale, and then the exhale, we twist into the pose. Now this time, you could stay here. And as you inhale, get a little taller. As you exhale, look over your right shoulder. A little twist to your neck. As you inhale, get a little taller. As you exhale, look over your left shoulder. Again, you're not forcing yourself into the twist. Do that one more time. Inhale. This time when you look over your right shoulder, you also may want to lower your right ear towards your right shoulder. Inhale, back up. Exhale, look over the left shoulder. If you want, you can lower your left ear. And then inhale back to neutral. And exhale, release your hand down. And then just pause for a moment, soften or close your eyes. Find your breath. And notice, do you have sensations perhaps in your neck, perhaps in your upper back? If you have too many sensations that are not great in your low back, you want to be really mindful that you're not pushing into the pose. And also think about your spine getting long before you do the rotation, okay? And then we're going to take the left arm out to the side. Right hand can hold your chair or the arm. Take a breath here. And then on the exhale, rotating towards the right and touching the right side of the chest as if you're bringing your intention into your right lung. Do it again. Inhale and exhale. We'll do 2 more. Go as slow as you like. Just take your time. Notice the different sensations in the different positions. As you twist, the sensations start to build perhaps in the back, maybe a little bit in the belly. And this time as you come into the posture, we'll stay here. Feel free to soften or close your eyes. Inhale, get a little taller. Exhale and look left as your shoulders are going right. Inhale, get taller again. And exhale and look right. And do that again. Inhale back to neutral, get taller. Exhale, look left. Inhale back to neutral, get taller. And exhale, look right. Sorry, I forgot to do the dropping your head. So turning to the left, then you might want to let left ear go towards left shoulder. Yeah. And then inhale back. And then exhale right and right ear towards right shoulder. Okay, inhale back to neutral. And then just let your hands rest on your lap. So this is a good moment. Again, the pause is as important as the pose. So soften or close your eyes and tune into sensations in your back, in your abdomen, in your chest, in your shoulders. For some folks, it's really easy to tune into sensations. It's important to know that some folks with trauma history often very difficult to tune into sensations. So maybe one sensation is enough. Maybe just how is my neck feeling right now? You don't have to go everywhere with it. Next one is kind of simple. We're going to slide the hands forward round the back and slide the hands back and lift the chest a bit. So this is a really good pose to do after the seated twist because it actually, I don't have any evidence on this from the literature, just from experience of myself and my students doing symmetrical movements like this after asymmetrical movements helps to create an integration in the nervous system and certainly in the mind. So that's one option. Here's another option you could do. It's kind of like a cat-cow, is bringing your hands to the chair. So you kind of lean forward, kind of are standing like in a tabletop pose, but without being on your knees. And so this would be inhale, lengthen the spine forward a bit. And as you exhale, you can soften your knees a bit and lean back and stretch. So this is okay as long as you don't have any low back challenges. Some folks with low back challenges, this might not feel so good. But if you're the kind of person who just has a stiff back because you sit in a chair too much, this can be a really good one to do in the middle of the day. Simple, right? Not too much, not asking too much. Some people like to walk their feet back and do more of a down dog here, and that's just fine too. Okay, so as you're ready, let's come back. Actually, you're welcome to take a moment and just stand tall and see how your body feels. You're welcome to do that for a moment here. I've got one, I think I have one more pose to show you, chair pose to show you. Actually, the next one is a standing pose too. Last one I want to do, and this is I'm gonna just adjust my camera because I feel like you can't see my whole body here. Okay, so this one is I still feel like you can't see me, but I hope you can mostly see me. This one is a forward bend, and we'll start from standing. Seated forward bends tend to be a little bit risky for folks with low back issues and with osteoporosis, which tends to be more in the middle of the spine. But at any rate, you want to be careful with forward bends. So the one that we just did might be actually feel a little safer. Okay. So for this one, you can take your hands, and this is another pose, increasing interoceptive awareness by using the hands. So you can take your hands to your hips, take a breath in. As you exhale, pull in from the lower belly, slide your hands down your legs, maybe to the knees, maybe a little further, let go of your head. And as you inhale, lengthen your spine and keep your belly firm as you float back up. So you use your abdominal muscles to come up. It's a little bit safer for most folks. Let's take another breath. Exhale into a forward bend. Slide your hands down the outsides of your legs. Let go of your head a bit. Inhale, lengthen to come back up. Some of you will be able to bring your hands to the floor, no problem. That's fine, of course. We'll do two more, sliding down. Another nice one is to slide your hands up the insides of your legs. Slide down the outside and up the inside. And that works with the Chinese meridian system, going in the flow of those channels. And then we'll do one more, and this time we'll stay down in the forward bend. So it might be like this. You can always bend your knees a little bit. You know, people always say, oh, I can't do yoga because I can't touch the floor. And I'm like, well, bend your knees. There's nothing wrong with bending your knees. A couple of breaths here. So the forward bends are really powerful for tuning into the parasympathetic part, the relaxation response part of the nervous system. And kind of it challenges what are called the baroreceptors. So it sort of like gets the blood pressure to go down a bit. So they're beneficial practices as long as you're not hurting your back. When you're ready to come back up, slide your hands up, lengthen your spine, use your strong belly and your strong legs. Okay, and then come on back to your chair. And we'll take a moment here again to soften or close the eyes. Soften or close your eyes and just take a moment and tune in. Pause is just as important as the pose. So here you can take a long, slow breath. Notice how your body feels after just really, really simple, a couple simple postures. And then the question I have for you right now is, could you take a moment? Could you think about how you might bring a little more slow, mindful practice into your life? 3 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the middle of the afternoon, 15 minutes after work, something like that. Where could you put it in your life? Can you take a moment and sort of understand the value of this practice too? Remind yourself, because sometimes we think we don't have any time, so we're going to go do that half an hour run and hit it hard, and then we got our exercise done for the day. Right? What if we also said, okay, I'll do my 20 minutes of run, but I'll do 10 minutes of just being slow and mindful. And how does that change my system? I think, it's hard to make a judgment about this kind of practice based on one experience, because a lot of times we, we'll feel something really strong with an exercise practice. You don't feel it's not as strong. It's more subtle. And that's okay. We have to be okay with that, So, I hope that this has been helpful for you. I hope it's gives you some ideas for yourself, maybe for friends and family, how they might slow down a little bit. I'd like to encourage you to slow down. I did leave in the PowerPoint, you can check out that link that goes to a free class on YouTube. So you can experience like a regular yoga class and how this would feel. So thank you so much for being here. I think I don't see any questions. So thank you so much for being here. And yeah, it's been really fun to be with you live. And those of you who are watching the recording, thank you.